Hi, I'm Mr. Wiggle.
It's I, Mr. Waggle.
Mrs. Tiffany is off somewhere.
She's probably reading to some animals.
So, she asked us to come here and read you all a story. I'm excited. Are you excited? I'm so excited! Before we read you our story today, we are going to tell you the story of us, Mr. Wiggle and Mr. Waggle. We are best friends, but we live on the opposite sides of town. Here are our houses. Let's go inside and begin our story. One day, Mr. Wiggle opened his door, came out, and shut the door. Oh, it is such a lovely day. I think I'll go and visit my friend, Mr. Waggle. So he went up the hill and down the hill, and up the hill and down the hill, and up the hill and down the hill, until he came to Mr. Waggle's door. He knocked on the door. Mr. Waggles was down in the basement sorting his potatoes, so he didn't hear Mr. Wiggle when he knocked. Oh, Mr. Waggle must not be home, said Mr. Wiggle. I think I'll go back home. So he went up the hill and down the hill, and up the hill and down the hill, and up the hill and down the hill. He opened his door, went inside, and closed the door. Oh, but he was so tired that he had to lie down and take a nap. Meanwhile, Mr. Waggle finished sorting his potatoes, and he came up. He opened the door and popped out, and closed the door.
Oh, what a lovely day. I think I'll go and visit my friend Mr. Wiggle.
So he went up the hill and down the hill, and up the hill and down the hill, and up the hill and down the hill, until he came to Mr. Wiggle's house. He knocked on the door. But Mr. Wiggle was taking a nap and didn't hear him when he went. So Mr. Waggle thought Mr. Wiggle must not be home.
So I'll go home.
So Mr. Waggle went up the hill and down the hill, and up the hill and down the hill, and up the hill and down the hill, until he came to his own house. He opened the door, went in, and shut the door. Meanwhile, Mr. Wiggle finished his nap. Oh, I do wish I could see my good friend Mr. Waggle. Mr. Waggle thought,
oh, I wish I could see my good friend Mr. Wiggle. I'll try again.
So each of them opened their doors, popped outside, and closed their doors. They went up the hill and down the hill and up the hill and down the hill until they met in the middle. Why, hello, Mr. Waggle. I was on my way to see you.
Hello, Mr. Wiggle. I was on my way to see you.
I came to see you earlier, but you weren't home.
Oh, that must have been while I was in the basement sorting potatoes. I came to see you, but you weren't home.
That must have been when I was taking a nap.
Well, come over to my house now.
So they went up the hill and down the hill, and up the hill and down the hill, and up the hill and down the hill, until they came to Mr. Waggle's house. They opened the door, went in, and shut the door. They had such a lovely time. They had tea and crumpets with lemon curd and fresh butter. It was delicious. Then it was time for Mr. Wiggle to go home, so they opened the door and came out. Mr. Waggle waved as Mr. Wiggle went up the hill and down the hill, and up the hill and down the hill, and up the hill and down the hill, until he came to his house. Then each of them opened their doors, went into their houses, and closed the doors. And that is the story of Mr. Wiggle and Mr. Waggle. I'm going to read to you Wiggle by Doreen Cronin. I'm reading this because of the title, which is Wiggle. That's my name, Mr. Wiggle. Mr. Waggle is going to help hold the book. Hello! Do you wake up with a wiggle? Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Do you wiggle out of bed? If you wiggle with your breakfast, it might end up on your head. First, wiggle where your tail would be. Then wiggle all your hair like this. Feeling extra silly? Wiggle in your underwear. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Can you wiggle with your shadow? Can you wiggle with your toys? Wiggle, 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 wiggle. When you wiggle with gorillas, do they make a wiggle noise? Can you wiggle in water? Wiggle one fin on each side. Or wiggle like a crocodile, open big and wide. When you wiggle where your wings would be, wiggles fill the sky. Wiggle slowly when with polar bears. They're very wiggly shy. Snakes are just one big wiggle. No wings, no tails, no feet. Kind of like me. Some wiggles are worth waiting for. Ooh, what is this? Wiggle, wiggle, tweet. It was a chick. Would you join me for a wiggle? Would you wiggle on the moon? I think we're out of wiggles now. See you wiggle soon. That was excellent. I think I did a fantastic job, don't you? Well, I enjoyed that story. Thank you, Mr. Wiggle, for holding the book up while I read.
You're welcome.
Next, we're going to show you how to make a thumbprint frog. I'm not sure if you've noticed, but we're thumbprints.
What? I thought it was a finger.
No, you're a thumbprint. Here's how you make a thumbprint frog. Mr. Wiggle, I'm going to need you to stick your face in this green ink.
Oh, I'm gonna have to take my hat off. Yeah. Here we go. Oh no!
Alright, now stick your face on this white paper. Alright, now you have your green frog body. Next up, you're going to need a marker, and you're going to draw some legs. Some little frog legs, and frog feet, frog arms, frog eyeballs, and a smile. There's a happy little frog. Ribbit, ribbit, ribbit. Thank you for joining us. I think that wraps up our story time today.
Wait, I was told I could sing a song.
What? No. I've heard you sing. That is not advisable.
Everybody dance now. Beep, 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 beep.